Welcome to our live stream, everybody. We're gonna be recording a podcast here, and we're gonna be doing it live. And
what do we got? What do you got going? What do we have going on today?
Well, let me. So we have it for YouTube. I'll do a little bit of an intro. Welcome to the. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Create Invent podcast. I think we need a new tagline here because I don't know that the old one fits. It's just me and Jeremy here today. We're going to be talking to Jeremy about his success on his JC Pro Macro Kickstarter. We're going to chat with you guys a little bit about our experiences lately on Tindy.com, where we sell our electronics. And we're going to be taking some live callers, and we have one in the waiting room. And if you're watching live, there's a link in the YouTube video description that you can click on, and you can come and talk to us.
Right. We'd love to talk to you. And I guess, Pat, since we're doing it live, we're doing the podcast live today, we might as well do the coffee break immediately, right?
Oh, yes. I forgot we were going to do the coffee break immediately.
So first of all, let's give a shout out to our top 5-ish Patreons. We got Positive Waves, Brian Moses, Stuart Morrow, Christina Kearney, Raptor, Carl, and I don't know, is there somebody else we're possibly, I guess Michael Sizer too, so he's got to give him a shout out.
So Jeremy, I want to ask you about Kickstarter.
Oh, okay. Well, let's.
Is it?
What do you got to ask me about Kickstarter?
Well, what is Kickstarter, Jeremy? No, I'm kidding.
Let's just say.
Everybody knows that Kickstarter is where you go when you want money.
Right. So Kickstarter is basically like you have an idea and people pay to Kickstarter to basically get you going. And
yeah.
So on Kickstarter, I had a macro pad that I've been working on for quite a while.
Jeremy.
Yes.
What is a macro pad?
So a macro pad, basically it's like a little keyboard where you can put in different functions for different keys. So my macro pad has eight keys plus a rotary encoder, which is probably the coolest thing about it. It's also
now, a rotary encoder for people watching. That's a knob.
Right, that's a knob. So basically, like if you hook it up, the most basic use is that you can turn the volume up on your stereo, not stereo, but on your computer,
on your hi-fi.
On your hi-fi. You can assign the keys as like stop, fast forward, back, or whatever else, and maybe you could have a browser mode. And mine actually has some of the GPIO, the input output pins broken out. So it's basically like a keyboard that's entirely customizable however you want it. It's using an ATmega 32U4, which is basically an Arduino that you can program to act as a keyboard. So anything you want, you could have it like type words in, you can have it control your media, you can have it anything you want. And I use it on my Macintosh computer. I think people have used it on Windows. Pat's used it with Linux and I believe Raspberry Pi. So it's...
Yep. I use mine every day on my Linux machine here.
Anyway, this Kickstarter's been pretty successful.
Now, Jeremy, you haven't made $1 million, right?
No, I've made
on this Kickstarter.
I made like $1 million, as in 1,000, a couple mil. I've made a couple mil, which is
$1
million. So
thousandths of a dollar.
Yeah. But no, it's interesting because I developed this. The whole story kind of started a couple of years ago. I think I saw Adafruit's. They had a teensy thing where you could control the volume and I think maybe like mute stuff with an encoder like this, like a rotary knob. I was like, oh, that's awesome. I built one, and then I built another one that maybe had some other functionality. Yada yada yada. A couple years later, I figured out how to do PCB design. It's took a class on that with a guy named Anuli. Very good. Very helpful. That was awesome, using KiCad or KiCad depending on your sect, I guess. Is that the right word?
Boy, I don't know. I don't even know how to say it. I've only ever seen it written down.
I think there's like an argument about it or something. And then in my head,
we should ask Mr. KiCad.
Mr. KiCad. Anyway, I learned how to design PCBs, and after a while, I was like, oh, I could make a keypad, and then I could actually have it mass produced. And it's really wouldn't be. I mean, it's not. I don't want to say it wouldn't be that hard. It was a bit hard, but it wasn't like that hard.
So we want to know how's the Kickstarter was. You were fully funded. You you broke past your minimum funding.
Right. So
goal.
my the way Kickstarter works, you put a minimum funding level down, which I think I put down as $2,000. Basically, if you don't make that, you're not gonna do the project at all. So kind of
Yep. Now, my understanding, you would use a minimum for, like, if you're having PCBs manufactured, if you're manufacturing 5 PCBs, then I'm going to make up numbers. You get 5 PCBs, maybe they're $20 each, but if you get 200 PCBs made, maybe they're only $3 each. So you need to reach a certain volume to be able to sell the product for a particular price, and the minimum helps you get there.
right, exactly. So that minimum can be extremely helpful in some cases. In my case, it didn't matter a whole lot, so I set it fairly low just to kind of maybe not ensure that I would make it, but make a pretty good chance of that. And I ended up funding it by several 100%, which is it's a good thing, but it's a little bit scary too, because you sell all these macro pads, which I think I've sold something like, let's just say 190, let's just say,
How about we say 200?
We'll say around 200 to make it a round number. And then at that point, I've got to make all these things. So it's been a challenge for sure. But I guess the one thing that was good about it is, and maybe the reason people were willing to fund it, is that I had a working prototype. I mean, it wasn't like I was just coming out of the blue, like, yeah, I want to make, something I have no idea what to do. I had something that actually did work. Took some good video of it. Actually, I'll say Pat took some good video of it. So that was very, very nice of him to help me with that. Pat took some good video of it. I took some video of it. DIY music projects guy, I think I'm butchering that, but we put this together and basically had a video that said this is something you can do, and this is what you can do with it. And people bought into it, including people I know, through you, Pat, and some people I know from Tampa Hackerspace. Some personal friends have bought these.
But then 190 people you've never met have also bought.
Well, yeah, it's amazing. People have this kind of faith in me that I will fulfill this. And at this point, I've fulfilled over 50% of it, and I've got another well over a month and a half to go on it. So right now I'm early in the whole process, so that's a good thing. And I think especially.
Have you had any trouble securing all the parts that you need to assemble these?
So that's a good question, because I think being, I want to keep wanting to say 2020, but being 2022, we're still having a bit of supply chain issues at this point. And so if I was late on it, I think people would probably cut me a little slack if I had a good excuse.
Well, even in normal times, I know it's easy to get 1 or 2 parts for prototypes, and it's easy to get 1,000 parts sometimes for manufacturing. But getting 50 or 100, those numbers in between there, sometimes that's hard to find a supplier.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think the good thing was I had most of this stuff kind of worked out. I think, today, kind of Michael was alluding to a little bit when he was on, pretty easy to get stuff from overseas. I think AliExpress is where I got a lot of things, and then stuff that I needed a little bit more immediate, even some stuff that I've maybe forgotten or didn't have enough. I can buy that off Amazon.
Sometimes I click on things on AliExpress, Jeremy, like an Arduino Nano or something. And buying 2 or 3 is cheap. But then when you go up to 10, 11, 12, there's some weird things that happen sometimes to the pricing. Where it goes up, the shipping goes from free, and then it's $80 shipping. And I don't...
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand it. I don't know how it
I've
works.
noticed that with the shipping a little bit. Sometimes the shipping will be free or very cheap, and then you put it up to 2 or 3, and then it goes up. But honestly, it's been fairly reasonable, and I think it goes from a certain really cheap, really slow shipping to a little bit less cheap, a little bit not as slow shipping sometimes.
Okay.
At least that's been my experience. It's been definitely learning experience. We're kind of talking about the laser earlier too. Some of these parts on this are laser cut. In fact, like the base, I cut that on my laser, so it's nice to have.
You're doing those in-house in your
doing
workshop.
those in-house, yeah. So I spent a decent amount of money on acrylic for it. It's kind of cool to be able to assemble these and have your laser working. So even if you're not doing that good of a job, you can say, well, at least something's getting done.
At least somebody in the house is working.
Exactly. And even better, if you're slacking off and if your 3D printer's running and your laser's going, I mean, you know,
Are you really slacking off if the machinery is doing work, the robots are working?
no, I don't think so. I mean, you told them what to do, so.
It's true.
Marketing was a big thing. Just trying to have a good video up, putting a good description. Basically, just find why I could do it. And I think one of the reasons I could say that I could do it, even though I hadn't ever done a Kickstarter before. Actually, I'll say there's two reasons. First of all, I could say that legitimately say I've shipped hundreds of parts on Tindy. Mostly something called an Easy Fan 2 board. And the other thing is the fact that I worked in manufacturing before I started working for myself, mostly doing writing and stuff. I think people will say, well, I know how you can, go through a process. Yeah, I know how you can. Oh yeah, it's an Easy Fan 2 board.
Easy Fan 2. I have one now, Jeremy.
Nice. Yeah, so basically this little board is just it's a transistor, diode, and resistor. Basically just makes it easy to turn on a fan on a Raspberry Pi. Something that I thought was just kind of annoying because, you need a cooling fan for Raspberry Pi, but you don't want to have it running all the time.
But say if you fulfilled half the order, are you doing them in a particular order, like the easy ones to ship first, or there's some orders that are waiting on parts, or how is this, am I asking are these hard-hitting questions?
No. Well, as you know, we're a hard-hitting podcast. Yes. So my Kickstarter, and, just to kind of to finish up what I was thinking a little bit, I worked in manufacturing, so I was able to set up a manufacturing cell, work cell with some bins and stuff. But as far as actually fulfilling it, I get these boards made and checked. So I had one tier that is just the boards. So I could put those in a bag and ship them. I mean, that was very easy. So hopefully people gotten them, and maybe some people have put them together. I don't really know. Second tier was kits. And that's where things get a little bit harder, because you've got my kits have about 20 parts in them. And when I thought about it to begin with, I was thinking this was an easy project, but now that I'm doing it, maybe it's actually a fairly somewhat advanced project. I mean, it's more than I thought it would be, just because you've got to put all these parts together. And what I did, I put together basically like a little manufacturing cell. So I've got all these pick bins. You can just go pick all your parts, final parts. And then before that, you've got a kind of bag of assembled parts, or not assembled parts, but small parts that are used to put together everything. So, basically you put together a small bag of parts.
Fasteners and
stuff. And then you put together the final parts. Then you've got your options. So that was the second hardest part, and that was kits. The hardest one, though, would be the actual assembled parts that I assemble them, I program them, I send them to you, and hopefully you can just plug it in and use it. So naturally, I did the boards first, but I didn't really do the kits second, because what I really wanted to do was test that everything worked. So if I put the kits together and basically with a fully assembled, I could test them in-house, and if there was a problem, you'll all solve it, as they might say. But if there's a kit, then I send them out, and people are not it's not working.
People will be disappointed if it's not working.
So basically, I put together a bunch of assemblies, and I also did like a test run, which I think there was actually this one that I put together. Basically, packed up a fake part, took it out and assembled it myself, and that's what I did the assembly video based on that. Since then, I know our friend Alex, friend of the show, he's actually put his kit together and programmed it. So I was thrilled to hear it worked correctly, even though I had no reason to think it wouldn't work.
Yeah, but you never know until the first one gets out.
Never know.
Not necessarily the first one, but the first one you get feedback.
Right. And you got to think, well, have I put enough documentation out there that people can put it together? The assembly documentation, the video I made, I think is pretty good. The programming video, when I took the video, I think I had 2 microphones on, so it sounds terrible. And I was doing it with my old webcam, I think, which didn't really work. Anyway, it may be helpful, but it's not very good. Yeah, hopefully I'll have something better out soon. So far, the vast amount of feedback has been very good. 2 people did not get their knobs, which I corrected that. And
who'd messed that up?
Well, I'll tell you what, I did mess that up. And the reason about this, the reason I did that, the reason I messed it up, I guess it's something I would do a little bit differently if I was doing a Kickstarter again. It's fine to have options, but really you want to have add-ons, not options, because the way I was doing it, I'd put together my standard parts, pick, pick. And then you say, okay, option 1, option 2, option 3, option 4. So you think, okay, there's an enhanced knob and a standard knob. So this is the enhanced knob. And if it doesn't have a thing for enhanced knob, then it's like, okay, I don't need that option. But you do need that option. You need the standard knob.
Yeah.
And that's I think where I got screwed up a couple times.
Do you want my advice there, Jeremy?
Sure.
You should have 2 bins you should always have to take something out of every column of bins, and there should be 2 bins there, regular and nice.
It's a good idea.
So you always pull one out. And maybe not even put them in the box. You pull them out of the bin and put them in put a thing in front of each bin, so every slot has to have something.
That's interesting. But then if you got add-ons, then you don't pull anything out of that bin.
Oh.
See, here's my
Yeah.
I've got a twofold solution for this. First of all, in the future, I think what I would do is have either no knob or an enhanced knob, or just not have that be an option either way. Just say you're getting a knob. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Or the second thing I have been doing is do the options first. That way you do the options, you say, pick this, pick that. You're kind of thinking about it, and then you go into your standard parts, just pick. So that way you're not in a rhythm, and then go back to like, who knows what's going on here? You can basically,
Yep.
you have to think about it to begin with, and then you can kind of put your mind in neutral to pick the other 5. You're not mind neutral, then what am I doing? It's, okay, this is what I'm doing. Now I can slack off mind-wise.
Well, Jeremy, do you know how often I walk into a room and forget why I went in there? I don't know how often, but I know it's a lot. I know for sure it's a lot.
Oh, I thought that was a joke. I don't know how often. You know how often I walk into a room and don't know? I don't know.
Yeah, don't you? You go wander off and you're like, what was my plan? I had a plan. I needed to do something.
Yeah, but
I don't know what it was anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, even today, I think you wandered into the room and just you're wondering why the podcast was on, and you're like, oh, I'm on. I guess I keep thinking of the mate. It's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path, Pat. That's what Cowboy Curtis said.
Is that true? Did he really? Did he say that? Did he say that on HBO or on Saturday morning?
I don't even know anymore. I think he was.
We don't know. Or was it Morpheus? I'm very... I'm literally thinking you're talking about Cowboy Curtis. I have a Kickstarter... I have a question about Kickstarter, Jeremy. Are you prepared to do your next Kickstarter? Are you going to use this this currency that you've earned of having a successful Kickstarter to move into another one in the future?
I don't know. It's a bit of a mystery. I've got a product that I want to put out there, but
do I know about it?
You do actually.
I mean, I won't say anything, but I just want to make sure I know what you're talking about.
Well, yeah, you do know about it. You might have a sample of it, but I think I'm gonna put that one out on Tindy. I guess my fear is it's like I've done a pretty good job on this so far. I think assuming I'll fulfill everything else. It's like, oh, am I gonna have another good idea in the future? I don't know. Maybe.
Are you gonna have another good idea?
I'll have ideas, I'm sure.
Are you gonna iterate on this one?
I think I've got a few ideas for iterating in this one. So even though I'm quite happy with how it looks right now, I do have a couple ideas. So I guess I could put out a Kickstarter for a version 2.1 or something. Or I think we were talking about Tindy. I think this if you didn't get on the Kickstarter, which is fine. We do have I do have it up on Tindy for pre-order right now, and it'll be up there hopefully within a month or so.
Are you going to continue to sell the version 1 until, or have they run out yet?
The JC Pro Macro 1 has not run out yet, so you can buy one now if you like. I'll say it's fully functional, but it's not as good as this one because
I kind of like the one.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, I wish it had LEDs though, because I really rely on the LEDs. I change the colors of the lights based on what is going on over here.
Yeah,
on
that is nice.
I very much rely on.
You have it set up very nicely. So yeah, this will be up on Tindy. Eventually. I mean, hopefully within a month or so. And
you're not allowed to sell them on Tindy until you fulfill every Kickstarter order, is my understanding.
That's reasonable.
Well, that's Kickstarter's rule, I think, right?
I think, I don't know if it's not a real, it's not an official rule. It's certainly an unofficial rule.
It's Jeremy's rule for sure.
The thing I'm a little bit worried about though is certain people have not filled out the survey. So once I fulfilled,
Oh, that's their fault, not your fault.
okay,
They can't hold you up from continuing to
because I
forward.
don't feel bad about that. But you know, if somebody else has a problem with it, then you know. But yeah. So anyway, fulfillment's going well. I guess my advice for anybody looking to get into Kickstarter will be, you know, it's probably harder than you would think it is. I mean, I designed this macro pad, and I thought, you know, just
Jeremy, we've got a question.
Okay.
From our friend Twisted Grim from Discord.
Oh, excellent.
Can Jeremy talk more about the experience of designing in KiCad for a Kickstarter item? Any different? Question mark.
Ooh, that's an interesting question. I'll say the one difference, just maybe not KiCad, but just generally speaking, you design something in Kickstarter or in KiCad, and generally, like, I would sell it on Tindy, you know, and then iterate from there. But with Kickstarter, you would design something, and then you get, you know, you might get some feedback from people, say on Discord. You know, you guys have been extremely helpful. You might get some feedback and say, okay, I need to change this, change that. I think there's a lot more time for iteration before you actually sell something, which I think is very, very helpful. And I think helped make this, you know, take this from a, you know, good enough product to something that was really, really good. I think probably the biggest thing was when I first started doing this, I was having the headers for the Pro Micro board coming up from the top, just because that was kind of a consequence of how the original was designed, to have the Pro Micro board on top of the board. I don't know. I think Brian Moses convinced me to
do the work now.
And that was probably the biggest thing. But
and for Tindy, you'd probably buy they're in the beginning they were just bare PCBs you were getting, so you can get them in small quantities for a reasonable. So you were probably getting them by the 10 or 20 at a time instead of 200 at a time.
Just generally speaking, there's a lot more time for iteration, and I guess the fact that you can put it out there, and it's not like you have to keep it secret before you show people. It's like if you have it up on Kickstarter, you've already kind of, I don't want to say you've laid claim to it, but it's already out there, and people already know that it's your product. You've already designed it. So at that point, you have this certain period where you can get feedback and not have to worry about it. And you will get feedback if you're out there on Discord or social channels or whatever. And I think that's extremely valuable.
I think you've done a good job answering the question, Jeremy.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
And
thanks
James agrees too.
All right. Good.
So it was his question.
Yeah.
So it's a good.
Well, good. So yeah, more time for iteration. I think that's the biggest thing. You know, I set the due date way farther out than I thought I would need it to be, and it's ended up actually being a lot more accurate than I thought it would be, just because it's you know, there's things you don't think about. I mean, there's things you run out of. You know, oh, I need more tape, no more solder. We had another baby in the, you know, couple months or so ago.
Congratulations, Jeremy.
Thank you. So, you know, I figure, you know, a lot of things to think about, I guess. That's a big deal. I'm not saying that's not a big deal, but you know, it's
yeah.
Obviously, things happen in your life, everybody's lives. So you got to just think about that and give yourself time